The FDA announced that it would approve the sale of a rapid COVID test known as FlowFlex. Scientists say, it's not scientists. See, that's me. Hey, we haven't gone live yet, have we? Oh, look, we're going live starting right now. The FDA announced that it would approve the sale of a rapid COVID test known as FlowFlex. Science experts say it's an essential tool despite being named by Tony Little.
An environmental activist crashed Louis Vuitton's runway show at Paris Fashion Week. But the activist sent the crowd an important message. Protest signs don't work with brown loafers.
Andrew Yang has left the Democratic Party to be an independent. Political analysts say the change won't affect his chances of losing elections.
Eminem, Dr. Dre, and Snoop will perform at this year's Super Bowl. They're still deciding which one is going to have a nip slip.
And finally, in trying to pass the $3.5 trillion spending bill, President Biden acknowledged that, quote, everybody is frustrated. He's just hoping that this won't lead to another biting incident, of which, of course, there have been many. By the way, I think for my money is definitely on Eminem with the nip slip. If we see nipples of any of those guys at the Super Bowl halftime show, I think it's going to be Eminem. He just seems like the one who would be, toughest to keep his shirt on. But that's just me.
Nipples covered in mom's spaghetti.
That's which sounds like it would be part of like an 8 Mile rap battle, but there's obviously some truth in it. And then the other thought that I had was about Andrew Yang leaving the Democratic Party, or did just all of the voters just leave him? I mean, I don't know. I mean, usually you don't run for president and then run for mayor of New York and then do so much worse for mayor of New York than you did for president, but what can I say? These are the stories that are important to me. Anyway, welcome to Biden Time. I'm Christian Blatt. That is, of course, Tamara Brown.
Hello.
Bringing the funny. Our pal Scott Moore is in Montana. So, and it seems to have a beautiful view and a lightning quick internet connection. We'll just see if he's able to use it to pop in with us, because I will tell you, I don't think I know about anything about Montana except that that's where Bozeman, and I couldn't tell you. I've never been. Not that I wouldn't want to go, but I have never been. So Scott's living his best life. Tamara, you went to Portugal a couple weeks ago. Scott's in Montana. I'm jealous of both of you, but
they say Montana and Portugal are a lot alike.
Yeah. Burbank is
I've heard that
just
somewhere.
Spectacular in October. So I really shouldn't complain. I think that's what it really comes down to.
It is. That truly is.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you feel that way. So there is a lot of talk about the debt ceiling. And, this always seems like one of those issues that is one of the most purely political issues there ever is, because, well, who's in power? Great. It's that person's fault. And then the other party's like, we are going to dig in as long as we can and make this difficult. But then ultimately, not that, we've had some government shutdowns, but ultimately they always give in. And I don't know. I mean, when you have the amount of debt we have, I mean, just the White House just have set in their contacts collection agents from China. It just, when it comes up, it says, do not answer, Chinese collection agency. I mean, should they take it seriously? I don't know. I'm not looking for you to answer that, Tamara. It's just more, it's the kind of thing that I wonder. But they usually take this first step like Mitch McConnell has. And it's, they've extended the debt ceiling short term. And as far as we can tell, that means that they'll be able to keep the lights on till October. I think on the one hand, you can see how this is frustrating. But on the other hand, is it the worst thing ever, Tamara, that everybody's not just lining up to say, yes, go spend $3 trillion on whatever it is that you feel like is important? Should there be some bipartisan checks and balances along the way?
Well, first of all, for me personally, once we get into the trillions, it just sounds like magic money. So I'm just like, sure, make it 4 million, make it 10 million, make it a
Yeah.
kajillion. Like,
Yeah.
why? It just doesn't. It's so intangible and just unfathomable that it just sounds like this is just. Yeah, it's just what was the Harry Potter goblin money called? It's just magic money at this point. So let's spend all of it, says I. Um, you know, we talk about the U.S.'s collectors, and we always, most people, Fox News especially, talks about China, how much we're indebted to China. Now, I believe, and somebody who understands the situation better than me could correct me if I'm wrong, but I've read that our debt to internationally is only about 30% of our debt. The majority of our debt is to ourselves. It's to our own bonds and investments and things like that. So we're mostly indebted to the America of the future, more so than the international debt that we've accrued. So that being the case, whenever this comes up, and it feels like it comes up every single year. When was the last time we had this potential government shutdown? Doesn't it happen every year?
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, there's probably like a year that they didn't have it happen, but it feels like every year. It's
So
honestly, it feels like multiple times every year, because they
yeah.
always do these short terms. It's like, well, we're not going to buy a new tire, but here's some chewing gum, and you go ahead and put that in the hole where you ran over the nail, and see how much further you can drive. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. So, every time this happens, we come to this standstill. We're threatened with a government shutdown, and then the debt ceiling gets raised, and then we continue until the next round. So it seems a little. I don't know what the actual. I have to say I don't know what the actual like uh fallout would be for us defaulting on our own loans. So, you know, uh, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, and they do always extend it, and yeah, there is obviously there's foreign investors that money is owned to, but like you said, with bonds and things, there we do owe this money to ourselves a lot, but when it comes to the government shutdown, I think that there's also a part of them where they realize that if the government shuts down long enough, I think that there'll be a lot of inconveniences and you'll have a lot of things. But then you'll just realize, well, like, which parts of the government do we really need? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, things that, people who get some kind of, assistance programs, there's all sorts of things like that. But, I mean, do we really need 535 people? I mean, the Senate seems to have the right idea. Two people from each state, done. Okay, great. Well, let's let's see. Do we need so many representatives? You know, I don't know. Let's see if we can maybe
Christian
do.
wants to rewrite the
I'm
Constitution.
just thinking about the idea of, it seems like so many people feel that in business there's so many layoffs and mergers. Let's figure out a way to trim some of the fat.
I
Uh,
like how it's not the Bureau of Land
nope,
Management that you
nope.
want to slim down. It's Congress.
No, because I think the Bureau of Land Management has a very important job. They
Sure.
manage the land.
We need
You know,
right. We need park rangers.
yeah. You
The
need an EP.
House.
D- Despite how every other president feels otherwise, basically alternatingly presidents feel like you don't need the EPA. You need the EPA. You need the FDA. You need a DEA. You need a lot of these things. But I don't know. I'm just trying to think of. I'm just trying to offer helpful solutions for
Hmm.
how maybe you can save some of that money.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think we needed a space force, and there was something about space force in the news, and everything I saw on Twitter was like, wait, space force is still happening, because everybody just thought that that was like a Trump thing, and I mean it was. But it's not like people responsible are like, well, let's stop spending money on that. No, it's money that's been approved. So you're
Well,
like,
because it's
we're
an arm of the military, and
yeah,
so of
exactly.
course we're not going to stop spending money
Okay.
on the
Okay.
military.
Stop spending on Space Force. We talked a little bit about this last week. You know, when it comes to these issues, the razor thin, almost non existent majority the Democrats have in the Senate is seen as a major obstacle. You know, there are a lot of progressives who are particularly critical of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. Now, there was this video making the rounds of Kristen Sinema being harassed and followed into the bathroom, and I would say that that sort of behavior seems like, you know, that it should politics shouldn't come into that, you know, even if that's, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know, outside of a Planned Parenthood. All right, well, you don't follow her into the bathroom. You can wait for her to come out, and if she figures out a way to climb through the vents like John McClane in Die Hard, all right, well, good for her, she got away. But, you know, I mean, it just seems like, oh, so we're at that point in this sort of, I'm using air quotes for debate, where we should be following a woman into the bathroom. And, you know, what did you think? You know, and you have to kind of move past the politics of it, but it is motivated by politics. When it came to that aspect of this, you know, I mean, and look, it's for a budget. You know, this isn't like a bill that's going to stop a war. This isn't a bill that, you know, overturned an election. This is just about, we need to spend more money. So we're gonna follow you into the ladies' room. I don't know, just your thoughts when it comes to that level of uh, engagement, for lack of a better word.
I'm always opposed to that level of engagement. As somebody who voted to defund the police, I'm always, opposed to people that I follow on social media who, record themselves saying "f you" to the police and things like that, because of the fact that any sort of mudslinging tactic, what is that accomplishing? Maybe that's somehow therapeutic for the person that's doing it, but other than that, like, you're not going to make following Kirsten Cinema into the bathroom is not going to make her suddenly be like, you know what? I think I'm going to side with the Dems on this one. Thank you for intimidating me in this private place. I have seen the error of my ways now. Like, that's not going to happen. So anytime anybody uses any sort of um, like threatening tactic, mudslinging tactic, anything like that, like, it's just completely unproductive. Um, you know, I guess, I mean, I guess it's a little easy to put it this way, but you catch more flies with honey. And but then too, I mean, I think that's Biden's downfall, is that he attempts too hard to to be nice to everybody and doesn't play hardball. But anyway, following somebody to a politician to their personal home, to when they're out with their family, um you know that serves no purpose. That serves no purpose other than to let them know that you dislike them. So okay, if that's your only goal, then sure. But as far as any sort of policy progression, getting anywhere policy wise, those type of tactics never work. Kirsten Cinema, she gives very little information why she's, on why she votes the way that she does, other than she wants a legacy of being this like centrist. So I can understand being frustrated with her in particular, but yeah, that's not the way to go about it.
No, exactly. I mean, I don't know if that they think that it's like, oh, I didn't realize how important this was for people. So now that I've heard you, number one, I'm going to go number one. And then number two, I'm going to vote the way that you want me to. So thank you for bringing this to my opinion.
Yeah.
And again, you know, look, it's you can think what you want about Sarah Huckabee Sanders, but that's obnoxious to harass someone at a restaurant. And I just mentioned her because if we get her name back out there in the news, maybe you can get the impression going again.
I was planning to make a TikTok about her today, just because she's like slowly creeping back in the news since she's on the campaign trail for governor of Arkansas. So I was kind of like, okay, sweet. I'll dust the old wig off. But
Oh, beautiful. I love it.
but the other issue with following politicians to their homes, or bothering them in public when they're with their families and stuff like that, is that people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders particularly starts to use it as you know, sort of uses it as an excuse for pushing, terrible policies through. Like, this is why we need social criminal justice reform, because my family's in danger. And it's like, those things have absolutely nothing to do with each other, but you're giving them an excuse to use, to play some sort of victim card in order to push their personal agenda through.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're definitely sort of you're working against your cause by, empowering someone. It's not even so much about this incident. It's about like, well, see, look, this is what the way that they treat people they disagree with. So, yeah, no, I definitely see that. Um, and in terms of popularity, I wanted to talk about President Biden with a 38% approval in a new national poll. And, many of the people who were asked say that the Biden administration not competent in running government. But I always think it's important to take into consideration, and those are very low numbers. I'm not pretending that they're not. But when you poll people in their approval of Congress, it's usually like 14%, which goes back to my theory of, do we need so many of them? I think in general, people don't like politicians. And you know what? Maybe you shouldn't, you know, but, I mean, look, this is the administration you have for 3+ more years. So you don't have to like it. A lot of people didn't like the administration we had 3 years ago. So, it's just, it's all
It suddenly
cyclical.
sounds like you're talking to someone's kids about their stepdad. Look, you don't have to like him. He's
Yeah.
not going to replace your dad, but you
No,
do have to respect him.
yeah, but at the same time, we got to factor in the tough love that. But you're the reason that your dad and I aren't still together. It's because of the way you behaved, and that's really where it comes down to with the approval ratings. It's hey, you made me be so unpopular. You think I wanted to be unpopular? And I don't know. I don't know how much that's going to hinder what they're trying to do, but the real obstacles are, when you deal with stuff like, the debt ceiling and budgets and all that, it just turns into like, wait, what have they actually gotten done? And then it's like, well, they're trying to get a third booster shot. But now they have people in the White House who are like, you probably shouldn't give everybody that third booster shot. I know people who are teachers who've already gotten a third booster shot, and I'm like, oh well, all right, show off, humble brag that you already got one. Like, oh yeah, I already got a flu shot when I got my booster shot. I'm like, all right, we get it. All right, we get it. You're more important than we are. But I don't know. I mean, that kind of a low approval rating. I mean, should it really impact? I mean, look, a lot of presidents would see that and they'd probably be like, I got to try and be popular again. What should I do? Do you think Biden ends up on TikTok to try and drum up some support?
I don't think that would help him, honestly. There are several politicians that are on TikTok, and I don't
Oh
see it
boy.
benefiting them particularly well. I follow Gavin Newsom on TikTok, for example. I don't think that's helped his. He had an account way before the recall. I don't
Oh,
think that particularly helped him.
I
But
was assuming that he got it for the recall, actually, until you said
no,
that. Yeah.
no, he had one. But anyway, yeah, the approval rating, I fully understood the approval rating going down after we pulled out of Afghanistan,
Sure. Yeah.
because that situation, warranted, like, okay, it seems like things are not being handled correctly right now. After that, I'm a little unsure. Then it went up just a little bit, and I guess it's back down. What is the issue that most people are disapproving of? Because even people that are supporting Biden are, they're in favor of uh, vaccine mandate, the majority of Biden supporters are in favor of vaccine mandates. They're in favor of us providing vaccines to other countries, poorer countries around the world. His policies at the border are unsettling, so I guess that's probably one of the reasons why he hasn't changed any of Trump's policies as far as immigration. So yeah, I guess that's a huge disappointment. I disapprove of him for that reason. The job that they're doing as far as immigration is concerned. So I guess I just answered my own question, but then yes, this debt ceiling uh, issue, passing the infrastructure bill and the spending bill, that gets so complicated that I don't see Americans having strong opinions about that one, since it's kind of a complicated issue. But yeah, I guess I can see why he's at 38%.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that what you need is, I guess, the sort of president who is okay if it goes down to like one, if they feel like they're actually getting their
You
work
know what?
done.
I want to look up what is the lowest approval rating. What is the lowest approval rating in history, and who had it?
I'm gonna
Who?
guess Millard Fillmore with 8% based on nothing, literally based on nothing. James Polk with 6%. But
Let's see.
while you are researching that, I will take a moment to talk about how there was a school shooting earlier today in Arlington, Texas. The reports are of 4 injured at the moment. That's all we're hearing. And I mean, I guess that the not to make light of it at all, but the upside of the pandemic when people weren't in school was that you couldn't possibly have school shootings, and obviously there are a variety of reasons why they happen and the ability to have happen, but it does seem like an issue that no one has put towards the forefront, even pre-pandemic. You have people that talk about it, and it's mostly Democrats who want to talk about it. Not saying that Democrats don't feel, not saying that Republicans don't feel sadness and tragedy and all that, but you just wonder what policy decisions that some of them might want to make. Are there any concessions that could be made? And it seems like something that, in general, we've talked about it on the show before. It seems like bipartisan conversations, and look, they should happen privately, in all honesty, because if they're on TV, then nobody's going to really say what they think. To actually have a conversation about it, and is there anything that can be done? And I mean, in all honesty, no, probably not. In sense of making them never happen, because you outlaw guns, there will still be guns that kids can get access to. That's not going to change anything. It's just going to be harder. So I don't know what the fix is, but it's always sad when you hear about them. The only way you're ever to get any solace is when suspects are apprehended quickly, and when you see injuries in the headline and not dead, it's still obviously got to be terrible for those families, but there's at least a minor consolation from that. But Tamara, I feel like school shootings is not something that anybody's even going to try to do something about. We'll hear people talk about it, how it's important, and but I don't think anybody in either party is seriously going to try and take this on.
No, especially not now. We were just talking about Biden's approval rating. To try to tackle in any sort of gun reform, it would be a huge gamble, because it could potentially be, polling shows that the majority of Americans are in favor of gun reform, but depending on what shape that would take, it could be a huge win for him. It could be an even bigger loss for him. So now would be a terrible time to tackle that sort of issue. Though, obviously, definitely needs to some definitely needs to be focused on. I mean, we should have
Yeah.
done that 10 years ago. The fact that after Sandy Hook nothing changed is just embarrassing for our
Yeah,
country. So,
yeah, no, I mean, obviously how terrible that was, but then also you extend that out to the fact that Columbine was 22 years ago, you know.
mhm.
I mean, so kids who are in high school now have lived an entire lifetime since the Columbine shooting. And yeah, I don't and look, I talk to people who are gun owners and they feel very strongly about the Second Amendment, but at the same time, those same people know the actual people that you talk to, especially if they're parents, they don't pretend that this isn't a problem. They don't know what the solution is, but when I'm having a conversation with somebody that's my friend, they're not supposed to know the solution. Our elected officials who can actually pass legislation that can do something. And it's great when you hear about background checks and waiting periods and stuff like that, because even if that prevents one incident that we'll never know about, whatever kind of workplace violence, anything that could possibly happen. But yeah, I think that it's such a volatile issue, and we were talking about popularity before, and politicians, if nothing else, want to be as popular as they can be.
I mean, my
uh,
position on the first and easiest thing that we could do as a country is to have government funded research as to, because whenever anybody uh, proposes any sort of like new gun legislation, there's so much debate of is that's not going to work. Here's why it's not going to work. And the
right.
reason that we don't have any solutions to that is because we haven't had real research. All of our research is from other countries, so a lot of other factors come into play, or a certain state that might have been under we don't have reliable data on what type of gun legislation, what type of gun reform could actually be effective. And the reason that we don't have that research is because the NRA, lobbies to Congress to prevent any type of government funded, official research on gun reform. So because the gun lobby is still so strong, we don't have reliable research, and so that's why we're never. So the very first step, I mean, the least that we can do, and I don't see how anybody, even a pro gun person, I don't see how they would oppose just research. Let's just research what type of um, reform might actually be effective.
Yeah, exactly. And research, sitting down and analyzing that research and just brainstorming ideas for things that could help. It is apparently a very tall order, and that's it just adds to the tragedy that you don't see any path where things like this could be prevented. And it's something that you unfortunately think about all the time, as a human, but especially as a parent. When your kids are out of the house and you can't keep them safe. So it's very very sad to hear about. But hopefully everyone is able to recover from their injuries, and hopefully they are able to learn something and maybe be able to prevent the next incident. And of course, it bears mentioning that Ted Cruz did not miss the opportunity to turn his public statement on it to criticizing Biden at the border. So when you talk about unpopularity, and Ted Cruz just somehow always comes up. And that is a guy who is desperate to be at the cool kids table. But I mean, he's not even in the same room as the cool kids table. So, you know, it's obviously, very, very critical just about a year ago about LeBron James was very outspoken in his support for Black Lives Matter, and then this year he's talking about how he's vaccinated, but he understands how people were skeptical, and then there's a lot of praise for Kyrie Irving, who is not getting vaccinated, and all of a sudden you don't have to tell NBA players to shut up and dribble. If they agree with you, then it's great that they're using their platform to, to focus on the important issues. Nobody has to shut up and dribble or shut up and play as long as they agree with me. So anyway, that's the little mini tangent there for just a little moment. The Supreme Court is back in session, and the Supreme Court justices would like the government to allow a inmate from Guantanamo Bay to testify. And I think that if you are, you're having a hearing about that issue, I think that anything that's going on at Guantanamo Bay, the and I think that there are definitely some very bad people being held there, and sometimes maybe you don't know why they're there, but the detainee in question has been held there for 20 years without ever being charged with a crime. And I'm not saying he's not guilty with a crime. If he's guilty of a crime, you should certainly charge him with it and let him know why he's there. So, and the idea is that this is a bipartisan issue because Obama, Trump, and now Biden have all blocked testimony from people who are saying that they've seen. I'm really bad with foreign names in general. Abu Zubaydah, and that you have people who can testify to the fact that they are aware that he was tortured during those 20 years. So I think that when you're starting to deal with intelligence, especially when it's dealing with somebody that's being held for suspected involvement in terrorist organizations, it's obviously very sensitive. But at what point is the greater good, the public safety, more important than just, well, let's hear what he has to say, and like we can get evidence that refutes what he says. If it didn't happen, let's get some people that tell us that it didn't happen. But I don't know. I feel like 20 years to be in prison without being charged. It seems like one of those things that our government is built on not doing that. And less about this specific case, Tamara. When you hear these sort of things, and this is hardly a new story out of Guantanamo Bay. I think that you can make a case where I would be convinced that you should hang on to people for a while, and I think that the hot button issue, like what, 10 15 years, really 15 years ago, was like the dangers of waterboarding. And you can convince me that sometimes things are necessary to get information, especially if it's of a time sensitive nature. But didn't President Obama tell us he was going to close Guantanamo Bay? I believe he campaigned on that. And as far as I'm trying to remember,
I believe
Obama has
Obama
not.
did.
What's that?
I believe that Obama
Well,
was.
that's what I said. Yeah, Obama did. So the way that I'm remembering it, Obama has not been president for a very long time, and it's still wide open. So what do you think? It seems like another one that's like, we're just not going to talk about Guantanamo Bay. But shouldn't the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, be able to hear what they consider to be relevant testimony? And again, it's not even the specific case in general isn't even what this is about. This is about, like, they think it would be helpful to be able to hear from people in Guantanamo Bay so that they can provide in the prison at Guantanamo Bay. They're not actually in the Bay, but so I don't know.
Thank
What
you
do you
for that
think?
clarification.
Yeah, well, I thought it was important. A storage yard resident would probably have messaged me, like, they're not actually in the Bay. What do you think about being able to actually hear from people with knowledge of what goes on there?
Well, first of all, torture does not work. The top, um, some of the top intelligence officers of the past who are no longer serving say that waterboarding, torture techniques They do not work. I think one of the reasons, it makes me think that one of the reasons that we don't listen to testimony like that is because we don't want to hear the horrible things that the United States has done to people, even terror. I mean, to bad people, but you know, to to do inhumane things like that. I think part of it is that we just don't want to face that. But yeah, as far as putting someone on trial, hearing some sort of testimony, how it could only be beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I think that this seems like another one of those issues where the people who make the decisions are like, yeah, we're not going to do anything about Guantanamo Bay. The Supreme Court is back in session. But of course, America's sweetheart, Brett Kavanaugh, tested positive for COVID, so he's not there. And I was reading that, I read a headline that referenced that, the court is back in session, but only one justice is wearing a mask in session. And now I did not look up the answer. We'll find out together. But if you had to guess, who do you think is most likely of the Supreme Court justices? Who do you think is most likely to actually be wearing a mask?
Hmm. Who would that be?
Yeah, I
Sonia
know. I mean,
Sotomayor?
if this was a year ago, I was like, well, only one, probably
Kagan?
Ruth. I would have said Ruth just to keep herself safe. But
I would say Sotomayor or Kagan is probably.
yeah, right. No, exactly. And this is the first time that this version of the Supreme Court is meeting in person. Interestingly enough, uh, that it was indeed Sotomayor, the only one who wore a mask. Now, Anthony Kennedy, who retired in 2018, he was there just as a spectator. He wore a mask, so I guess it was also Old Timers Day. He was not in uniform, but he was there. Um, but in any case, sort of reading about as this goes on, you're hearing about the the so the Supreme Court is going to handle abortion, guns, death penalty. So, guns, something that I feel like not much is going to happen. But I guess depending on where the Supreme Court comes down, I guess that can inspire legislation one way or the other. But the Supreme Court is also apparently not particularly popular right now as well. I don't actually have a number on that in terms of,
The
but just
conservative leaning court is not very popular right now.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is its lowest point in more than 2 decades. I have it now, 40%, down precipitously from a 10-year high of 58% just last year. So last month is when they came up with 40%, and last year it was at 58%. I don't know. I mean, look, you get a lifetime appointment, so the approval of the Supreme Court could be like -50, and it's not going to matter, you know. But
What do they care?
Yeah, right, exactly. And is that the problem that that you shouldn't have a bunch of people who don't care? If I mean, I guess if you feel like you're properly interpreting the law, so be it. But yeah, I mean that was kind of the main point I wanted to bring up, though, the fact that this court is not particularly popular, and you can point to really just the case that led to the the Texas abortion law. I don't even know what they call it. It's a heartbeat bill, I guess, is the euphemism that they refer to it as, but basically the abortion ban. I think that what you can glean from that is that's sort of the most high profile non-decision that they've made, because they didn't actually make a decision on it. They were just like, no, we don't have to do anything about that. They're all good. Do you think that politicians should glean anything from the fact that this Supreme Court is 18%?
Useless?
well, 18% less popular than a Supreme Court a year ago, which had one different so basically, does it translate to Amy Coney Barrett is 18% less popular than Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Is it that simple? Is it like a one for one? In baseball they have war, wins above replacement. So did Ruth Bader Ginsburg have a higher war than Amy Coney Barrett? I'll take my answer off the air.
There's that, but there's also, okay, so what cases have been tried by the court in the last year? Has there been any case that people are just particularly dissatisfied with? And I'm trying to think if there's
Yeah,
what major ones did
I
they?
mean, that's really the big one. And then, I think that some of the stuff they're about to hear, I guess, I guess we'll have to see. But I don't
But
know.
again, if you're dissatisfied with the court, it's a heavily conservative court. So what does that tell you? Politicians, Mitch McConnell should take that into that I'm going to call it a disapproval rating. Mitch McConnell should really take the blame for that. It's his court. So I think that falls on him, but it's not
Yeah,
like he
but
cares.
you want to talk about people who seem to be impervious to bad approval ratings. I believe that that is Mitch McConnell. It's like reverse kryptonite. It actually makes him stronger.
Yeah, yeah,
It's more of like
it
the Emperor
does.
from
He
Star
feeds
Wars.
he feeds off
Yeah,
your hate.
your hate only makes him stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think we'll have to watch this very closely. And I think that depending on there's a lot of these decisions are ones that can be very headline attention grabby. If they don't reinstate the death sentence for the Boston Marathon bomber, for example. I think not doing that is only going to make you less popular. It depends on what your reasons are. Maybe you
Hmm.
just feel like there's a reason why there shouldn't be a death sentence for him. But boy, that's a tough one to try and convince people of. But I don't know. I when I see this stuff about the Supreme Court, it makes me wonder, like, where are we at with them trying to add more people to it? It seems, I mean, they can't even pass a spending bill, so I don't think that they're going to actually be able to add justices to the Supreme Court. I think that Democrats would have to have an unexpectedly good 2022, which that's more than a year away. So, as stranger things have happened. I don't think things much stranger than that, though. That it would be a great year for Democrats. But what do I know? Do you think that's really the only way to get change on the Supreme Court, though, Tamara, is to
Term
add
limits
more?
and adding more justices. That's all
Yeah,
we
I
can
mean,
do.
and oddly, I feel like adding more justices is more likely than term limits. Because and I don't know, and do you have to let the current bench all have lifetime appointments because that's sort of what was in place?
What?
Are they
Yeah.
grandfathered in? I don't know the answer. A couple of other more lighthearted instances. The Idaho lieutenant governor, her name is Janice McGeachin, which probably only in Idaho are people talking about her. But I thought it was a very interesting story in that the lieutenant governor issued a vaccine passport while the governor was out of state. And this is one of those states where the governor and lieutenant governor are elected separately. And she plans to try to take the governor's job next year. And the governor, his name is Brad Little. Unfortunate name for sure, Brad Little. He says that he's going to just reverse it as soon as he comes back. But I kind of like the idea as like, as
Yeah.
soon as your boss leaves, every day is casual Friday. Um, but I don't know. I can't. I wish our pal Dominicus Saxon, who sometimes watches this show, I wish he was in the chat because he lives in Idaho. I'm just like, because I feel like vaccine from just he's the person that I know from Idaho. So my impression is that he would be more of a Brad Little guy than a Janice McGeechan guy. But I guess look, mission accomplished in that she got the attention. I would never have known either of these people's names if not for that. But what do you? Yeah, you use the you did the Nelson from The Simpsons laugh. It is kind of that moment, right, where it's just like you left the state, dummy. Now I'm gonna pass my kind of laws. What do you think when you hear that, Tamara?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's interesting though. So I guess I would have to understand the state's election. So they are of opposing the governor and the lieutenant governor are of opposing political parties. Is that the
Yeah, I mean
case?
they certainly have different ideology, but yeah, I guess when you run
That's really
separately,
interesting.
yeah, I mean,
That's
and
really
you do
interesting. I think
you
that's a good snapshot of what, it's things like that we can look at and be like, maybe these are ways that we should change our own election. Maybe the vice president should not be chosen by the candidate running for, president. It's an interesting, depending on how things like this pan out. As you say, no one's paying close attention to Idaho, so we don't know what other instances the lieutenant governor versus the governor have what type of changes have been made, but that would be interesting to look at that to see how when we zoom out, how that might be a good idea for some sort of election reform on the federal level.
yeah, and it's the vaccine passport requirement, ties in locally here in Los Angeles. That I guess technically you're in Los Angeles, I'm in Burbank, but Burbank always seems to follow the lead of Los Angeles proper, even though it's not part of the city. That they're going to have the requirements like they do in the Bay Area. It's like you want to come to a restaurant, you want to go to a gym, you want to do all these things, you have to be vaccinated. And the thing that I can't figure out is when, is there an exception for, children too young to be vaccinated? They would probably still need to be tested, I would assume. But it's going to make it really tough to take my kids to the movies if I have to wait 12 years for them to be able to be vaccinated.
Well,
So
Christian, you can always take them to Tin Horn Flats.
you know what? I can't because Tin Horn Flats has been closed for quite some time.
Oh yeah.
It got padlocked. They put sandbags all around it. They cut the power. Eventually, they just gave in. Yeah, I took it. Boy, it took a long time though. In any case, the final thing that I wanted to talk about, just because the headline jumped out at me, and it basically echoed my reaction to this, which is that Bill de Blasio is considering running for governor of New York next year. And keeping in mind that Bill de Blasio is a Democrat, Bill de Blasio is a Democrat, and a Democratic Party official in New York said that he would get zero, if not negative, support from us. Osama bin Laden is more popular.
Gosh.
And of course, we're not speaking of Scott Moore in that way, who is just looks like you look like you're literally relaxing in a hammock amidst some beautiful scenery. You're in Montana, right?
Chair, so yes, look, you can look. I am in Montana. Yes.
Whoa!
You can see the background.
Holy
Congrats.
cow!
I'm on my phone.
I've never seen that much land before.
Yeah, this is my
yeah.
So I am. Yes, I'm here. I had to get on my phone. The Wi-Fi I couldn't connect on my laptop. Is being a little funky and kind of in between a bunch of stuff right now. So, but I want to drop in and at least say hi. And
Scott,
say
I gotta say, you look great. Montana agrees with you.
Well, it's been 24 hours. So I've been in North Carolina. I've been in Florida. I've been in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and now I've been out here over the past month.
Wow,
So,
that Johnny Cash song. That Johnny Cash song is really about you. You've been everywhere. Scott, we were starting to wind down, but you did come in at the perfect moment. talking about the unpopularity of Bill de Blasio, who people probably don't remember he ran for president last year.
That's
But
right.
he sure did. And I think he was only there to make Bloomberg's campaign look good. The idea that he would run for elected office, and keep in mind he did get reelected. I'm from New
He
York
did.
originally, and people say like, "Ah, New
Mhm.
Yorkers are so smart. They can smell out a phony." Yeah, then why did you reelect a guy whose name, by the way, is not Bill de Blasio? It's like Wilhelm or something. I don't even remember what his real name is. But do you think that Bill de Blasio is getting good advice if he thinks that it might be a good idea for him to run for governor?
No, I don't think so, because the other thing is that most people don't think about, and you would know too, being from New York, is that a lot of upstate New Yorkers do not like New York City. It's kind of the same thing out here in California. A lot of the politicians, they don't really like, it's the North versus the South, the San Francisco
Sure.
politicians versus the LA, politicians and base. And so you kind of have that too, where a lot of upstate New York is a lot like parts of California. It's very rural. It's a big swath of red. And also upstate, more blue cities don't have, it's kind of a love-hate relationship with New York City and with New York City based politicians. So winning a statewide election would be challenging for him. Not to mention, but now there's going to be an incumbent with Governor Kathy Hochul in there, and if she
Yeah.
just decides to run for a full term, which I would assume that she probably will, then she has the built-in incumbency as a Democrat. She's going to have the built-in advantage of the state machinations of being in office and having that backing her, and being an incumbent gives her a real advantage. I mean, that's why Bill de Blasio won re-election in New York City. An incumbent always has the advantage, and that's why you see incumbents win re-election so many times, from the presidential level all the way down to the local city council levels and local races. Incumbency really does give you a really strong built-in advantage in general. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that's why he
people
won
have to be
re-election. But
really disliked to
yes,
lose elections,
yes, and
Very,
hence,
very disliked.
re-elections.
Yes. Yeah. So Tamara, are you willing to endorse Bill de Blasio, or do you want to see what the competition is before you do a TikTok video, a vote de Blasio video?
I'll endorse him just because his name's fun to say.
It's
But
true.
no, I feel like that type of race, and then it sort of goes with you know, when we look ahead to the next presidential election, like there's no one is considering a run for governor of New York that's real inspiring. I don't think that there's like a standout charismatic candidate. Scott mentioned the incumbent. I think she's probably, people are like, she's fine, and
Yeah. Right.
rather than
Exactly.
rather than a resounding like, yeah. And I think on the whole, right now, one of our problems in state elections and national elections is that we're running out of superstars. We really don't have anybody that is inspiring people. So
Yeah. Well, you can make the same case for California, which I'm sure we'll get to talk about in the near future. Scott, we're gonna let you go in a moment because we'll all go. But you were talking about traveling all around. You have been everywhere. You mentioned all those states. Is there anything consistent? Obviously, you're there to work, but is there anything you're hearing, amongst your travels to these different places or while you're traveling? Is there a sense for what's important to people that you cross paths with, and why is it not the debt ceiling?
I know, right? No, I mean, I think the biggest thing that's affecting people is inflation and COVID mask mandates. I've noticed that for instance, when interesting thing is North Carolina is very similar to California, and I think that's the only state I've been to lately that has a Democratic governor. That you have to wear a mask when you go inside establishments like California, regardless if you're vaccinated or not. But the rest of the states are very just open, and in Florida, it was when I first got there, they gave me a look when I went to the grocery store with a mask on, because I wasn't really sure. There's a lot of older people in the area I was visiting, but nobody was wearing a mask there, and it's very much like COVID doesn't exist in Florida. But the big thing I've been hearing from everybody across the board, beyond the mask kind of rules or not, because it's been very inconsistent as I've traveled, A lot of people have said the same thing. It's very inconsistent with sort of the rules depending on where you are, even in localities, but also inflation, and that's come across, and hiring people for work. Everywhere I go, it's looking for people for work, whether it's at restaurants. You see the signs everywhere. So those are the three things that I've noticed that have been consistent across the board: are inflation. People talk about prices going up. Um, Trying to find people jobs, or hiring good people to work. They can't get enough people. You see supply chain issues everywhere. Like I was in Walmart last night and half the shops were empty. So those are kind of the consistent things I've seen across the board. It comes to inflation, job hiring, supply chain issues, and then obviously mask mandates kind of being inconsistent. But across the board, that's what I've noticed in the past in the 5 states I've been in over the past month.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that in Montana, there's probably not someone wearing a mask, in like a 90-mile radius of you right now.
No, but what's interesting though is it was in Florida even more than Montana, because in some of the places said we would prefer that you wear a mask when you come inside. So I was somewhat surprised on that. Where Florida, it's like if you're vaccinated, the difference was in Florida they said if you're vaccinated you don't need to wear a mask. If you're not, then you should. But that just leaves everybody to just not wear a mask because they're going to just
Right.
say, well, I'm
Yeah.
vaccinated. Like nobody's asking for proof or anything. But I noticed that they said vaccinated or not. It didn't even say that in Montana. It was just we'd prefer you to wear a mask if you're coming inside here, or something like to that effect. So I was kind of surprised by that, to be honest with you. But nobody really is. And nobody was either in New England either. So in New Hampshire or in Massachusetts. And Massachusetts is a very liberal kind of state, but
Yeah.
nobody, even the restaurant workers in a restaurant I was at in Massachusetts the other week, were not wearing masks.
People are
So even the
fatigued.
workers, even the
Mask
workers
fatigue.
were not wearing masks in Massachusetts, but they were in Florida. So again, it's been kind of interesting to see that it's been different depending on the location, and that there's not a consistency across the board.
All right, and then I'll put you on the spot, Scott. What, it doesn't have to be the number one, but what is something that stands out as somewhere great that you've eaten in the last week or two? In all these places, let's shout out a good eatery that I can be jealous that I didn't go to, and let's take Bojangles out of it because we always talk about it.
Yeah.
No
Well,
Cracker Barrel. Let's talk about somewhere that you went that you were like, wow, this was great.
I'm going to give a shout out to the Lobster Boat, and it was not right on the water. But I really like the Lobster Boat, which was in Asheville, New Hampshire. It was not on the water, but had amazing seafood, locally run. There was a waitress there that had been there for 18 years, was still working there, So
Nice.
I love that kind of vibe. They were great. Good prices considering. And I also really like the Loft in North Andover, Massachusetts. It's like it looked like an old tavern. And they too had a really great menu and locally run for the past like 40 years. So I love my local establishments, of course. And so I'm a big fan of supporting local places.
Yeah, I once went to a wedding in Maine, and I'm sure the wedding was lovely, but I can't remember because all that stands out from that trip is just some of the amazing lobster roll that I had, and I had many. So, anyway, well, Scott, hopefully your travels bring you back home sometime soon, and hopefully we'll be able to sit down and have a whole show with you.
Yes.
That you're just too busy to get into Twitter fights with Mitch McConnell right now, right?
I've gotten into it a little bit with this debt ceiling. I've had to push back a little bit on him,
And,
so yeah,
if people
absolutely.
want to see that, they can find it at S-Man80.
Tamara,
right. Where can people find you?
Right here. Hey, Tamara on social media.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Please subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel. I know that this show is on at some random times right now, but there's a lot of contributing factors. I could pretend that I want to blame it all on Scott, but it's just
it's okay.
schedules have not been kind of late is really what it comes down to.
It's mostly me,
Yeah, it's mostly Scott though. But so if you subscribe, you'll always know when it's live, and then you can please always watch the archive version. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Thank you everyone for watching. We will see you next